I'm using this scraping blade technique. Do you think I'll be good with 3 coats? So you're saying you sprayed 3 coats of clear and you got a nasty run? Is that what you're saying? And you're using the scraping blade. So if you have a pretty significant run, that's really looks like a raindrop run, you know, not like a sag, but more like you could see the actual run. What I like to do is cut it off with a razor blade. So the scraping kind of works, but it takes a while. I like to just cut it off from the bottom going up. Just move your razor blade a little bit and just go up, and you can literally cut the runs off. Then what I like, and don't go too quick because sometimes you'll actually peel that whole drip run off down to the base coat. So just be careful. Make sure you're using a brand new razor blade. And you know, these are the razor blades that I like to use. You know, basic old, you know, razor blade like this. You guys know what I'm talking about. I got a box of them, old school box, but this type here, right? You just go upward like this, and you just cut them off. And then I like to maybe use an 800 grit to kind of cut it down quicker. Then I'll go to 1200, you know, 15, 2000, 25, depending on what color it is. If you're doing like a black, if it's a black car that you're buffing, then you might want to go down to 3000. Yeah, if you got 3 coats of clear on it, that's plenty of clear coat. Just be careful. You know, you could use a coarser sandpaper, like I said, to just cut it. You know, get it down, and then maybe move toward a 1500 grit to finish it off. Some people mix glaze putty, and you could put a skim coat of glaze putty over your run and the sag area, and then block it. It'll kind of be like a guide coat where you can see how much you're cutting. You know, and we have VIP videos of that as well in VIP. So check them out. My hood, bare metal with epoxy primer, and it's been sitting for about a month. Do I need to sand the epoxy primer before coating it with my 2K primer? If it's sitting for a month, I would just give it a quick scuff. You don't have to sand it too much. Maybe just put like a 280 to a 320 grit just to scuff it. Just go over it quick. You don't have to take too much off. And then you could put 2 coats of heavy filler, 2K filler primer on that. Normally, if you're shooting epoxy and you let that flash for 30, 40, 50 minutes, give it from 30 minutes to an hour, you know, that's a good window. Then you could put a 2K filler primer right on top of it without sanding if you're doing that the same day. You know, I've actually waited a few days and primed on top without sanding, and I never had any issues. But a month, you might want to just give it a quick scuff and paint it. Okay, cool. Over the epoxy, do I put a coat of sealer, then a filler primer? Nope, you can go straight 2K filler primer over the epoxy. Okay. I use a hard block of wood to cut a run. So yeah, whatever you want to use. If it's a good, nice, solid piece of wood block, you can use. Sometimes in some areas, I will break a paint stirrer, and that would be a good little thin little block to block out. Kovacs does have these little mini blocks. Do I have any here? Or are they in the house? These are like little mini blocks by Kovacs for runs that you could use. You know, there's all types of stuff out there. What else you got? You can use a Dura block. This is just a big, huge block here, you know, but you got smaller blocks that I've cut in half. So this is a regular hand block that I cut in half because I needed something small to get into a tighter area. So, you know, whatever. And I kind of like, you know, the hard foam blocks because they give you a little bit of flexibility if you need it, you know. Let's see. You spray a sealer at. Sealers you can spray at, you know, 22 to 20, 23, 24 pounds max. I wouldn't go any higher than that. But, you know, if you got a good spray gun with good atomization, you should be good around 22 to 24 pounds spraying a sealer. But if it's a primer sealer, you could be lowering that a little bit. You know, you could be spraying from 18 to 22 pounds, depending. Sometimes if I want to reduce my overspray when spraying a 2K filler primer slash sealer, I could spray at 18 to 20 pounds, you know, and it lays down nice. It lays down nice. Paint did you use on the van? So for the black, I used about 3/4 of a gallon, 3 quarts on the black, because we did trim pieces and bumpers as well. And then the white, I used the whole gallon. So we used the whole gallon. It was about a gallon and a quart, 5 quarts for the white. And that's a big van. That's a Chevy Express. The whole roof is a lot of white paint, but we used the whole thing. There was probably a little bit left over, you know, maybe like could have been a pint, you know, 20 ounces left over, which was basically garbage, right? Because you don't, once it's mixed, once single stage is mixed with activator and mixed up, you don't save it, right? It's done. And it's always better to have extra than not enough. Okay. Although you could stretch paints if you need to, you know, add a little bit more reducer. If you're starting to notice you're running low on paint and you're like, oh crap, you could start adding a little bit more reducer, you know, after half of your vehicle is painted. You're like, oh man, I'm going to need another extra, you know, 20 ounces of paint here. You could just start adding a little bit as you go, you know, reducer while you're mixing. Cause sometimes you're not going to mix everything at one shot. You know, sometimes you're going to mix half of your paint, see how much, you know, see how much you've got down, see how much you need. Okay, now the roof currently still had scuffed up acrylic lacquer from 40 years ago. Looks very solid. Can I put a sealer over that, then paint it with polyurethane? Absolutely, you can. If you don't want to cut it, you know, if it's a sentimental build, okay, and it's a car that you want to know that you have a good paint job on it and last, you know, it's recommended to get down to metal, epoxy it, then you could put a 2K filler primer on it, block it, then put your urethane single stage or base coat clear coat on top of that. But if you feel like, it looks pretty good, it's pretty solid, then you could absolutely seal on top of old lacquer paint. Okay, you could absolutely do that. Um, to paint candy paint, do I have to put silver base all of the time? No, you don't. Um, but to get the full effects of candy, you know, it's recommended to go over silver, you know, a coarse silver, a fine silver, whatever. But it's not necessary. Okay, a good way to start practicing, guys. Before I continue, how many newbies on that's never been on before, or you're new to Autobody, you want to learn a lot of different strategies? Don't forget to just go here, head to learnautobodyandpaint.com to get my free guide and video trainings. Okay. And then there's going to be a special offer to join VIP. If you want to join up. That's awesome. There's over 250 hours of everything that we're talking about in VIP, step-by-step videos on how to lay down candy paint, just like Emilio said here. And how, if you're a beginner, it's recommended by me. Say you're doing a red candy. So spray a red base coat and then put your red candy on it. It'll still look beautiful. It might come out a little tinge darker, okay, than going over a silver, but it's going to be much more easier for you to lay down and spray than going over a silver. Because if you're doing red candy over silver and you don't have the proper spray technique, spray gun distance, speed, flow, overlap, right? You're prone to get tiger striping and have heavier areas than others, you know, especially if you're doing a big vehicle, you know, little motorcycle parts and little parts, not that bad. But, you know, with candy, you're not painting and ending around here like a normal paint job. Okay. If you're spraying the fender, right, you're usually coming up to here with a regular paint, and then you're misting it down. You're coming up to here like overlapping. You never want to end here because you're going to end up with a dark line going down each of your body seams. So even with more, it's more so with candy. And that's why when you're laying candy, you want to go actually across the whole side of the car at once instead of stopping and painting single panels like when you're regular, when you're painting regular paints like a base coat, clear coat, or even a single stage. So this thing was candy. We did this thing candy over multiple colors. Started as silver. This was our silver under it with heavy flake. And then we did a candy and blended candy to a blue candy, a purple candy up here. And then we did the same type of fade on the top. So this is a complete candy paint job here. We have another motorcycle in my container that was a complete candy paint job. And all of these videos will be in, well, they are in VIP. Most of these are in VIP. Some of the footage I have to re-edit and because I want to make them better and then put them in VIP. But we have a lot of other candy videos in VIP. So hopefully that helps. Before, how long do I have to wait before to fix clear coat runs? So it depends on the activator that you used and the clear coat that you use. Normally, if you're in hot weather and what's up, Nala? And you mixed, normally a couple days. Okay. Sometimes if you're rushing and it's a customer job and the clear coat dried really well, you could color sand and buff the next day. But it's recommended to wait a couple of days, a week, or even 2 weeks, to make sure that clear is really cured up and hardened. And you can tell by poking it with your fingernail. And it's going to be soft. No matter what you do, the clear coat will be soft for a couple of days. Okay. Until that thing is really sitting in the sun or something and it's really dried out, then your runs they'll start to feel a little bit harder. But even if it's soft, you could sand. Okay, you could still sand and buff clear coat even though it's a little soft. Okay, and it's hard for me to show you here because I don't have any wet, freshly painted clear coat, but I do have videos of this in VIP showing you all of this in detail. Because when I made the VIP videos, we were going through the process, and I do have videos with some runs as examples, how to color sand the buff runs and all that. So yeah. 2K to use as a sealer, just reducer. So, the paint shops don't say this, but if you reduce your 2K filler primer down and make it thinner, it pretty much turns into a sealer. Okay. You don't hear many people talk about this, but that's what it does. And to use a true sealer before spraying, that's a totally different product. So it's really not 100% true sealer. It becomes more like a primer sealer. It thins it out a little bit. It flows on smoother, and sealer is supposed to flow out really smooth. So the reason why you're thinning down your 2K filler primer, hopefully this makes sense, is to make it flow out smoother. Okay, so that's giving you that sealer. But no matter what, regardless, if I'm reducing it down and spraying it on smooth, I still like to cut it down with 400 grit sandpaper before I paint it. So, it doesn't matter if you're using a 2K filler primer and mixing it and spraying it direct, kind of a little bit thicker, or if you're reducing it down because you want to get more product, or you want to kind of smoothen it out so it flows out nicer. Okay. Still, no matter what, I like to let that cure, for a day at least, a couple days even better. And then I like to sand that flat, block it down with 400 grit before I paint over it. Okay. And a 2K filler primer is a perfect foundation to put new paint on top of. All right. Is there any pressure difference with the Atom X low volume? So the high volume will require a little bit more pressure from your tank. So it's better to have a larger air compressor when spraying with that. The low volume, low pressure is going to require a little less volume air from your air tank. So you can spray it. But I mean, they're both great guns. I'm not sure what application you're doing. Are you doing clear coats or base coats? And they say, you know, with base coats, it's better to use a high volume, low pressure, and clear coats, low volume, low pressure. But I've sprayed both base and clear and single stage out of high volume, low pressure guns and low volume, low pressure, and still got great results. I mean, you can't even tell the difference with the results. So it really doesn't matter. I don't feel like it really matters at all. So I might drop down to 90 before the sun comes up, typically 110 and 120 during a day. So for that, I would definitely use a slow temperature reducer hardener. Because that's very, very hot. Okay. And you might want to just wait a little while. If you're doing touch-ups, I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you're doing small touch-ups, fenders, hoods, or whatever. But excuse me. But if you're doing a complete car, you might want to wait a couple months until it starts cooling down a little bit, because that's really hot, you know. So, you know, 90's hot already. 90, you could do a complete paint job in 90, but 110, 120, your clear coat's going to start curing pretty quick. So it's, you know, you're in a race between time. Definitely use a slow reducer, slow hardener, okay? Because the heat is going to compensate for the cure time. And just try to paint as quick as you can if you're doing a complete paint job, and make sure you're laying it on wet. That's the number one thing. And that's why I love a product called Gun Bud, because you could literally strap it on to any spray gun head, paint cup, okay? And you can literally light up. I have the adapter on here, so this is really, if I take this adapter off, it's not too hard. But that's where this Gun Bud Ultra lighting system comes in, because it'll literally light up. I think this one might need a charge. No, it'll literally light up everything in front of you while painting. And I will not do any more paint jobs without this thing, because I don't know if you could see it. I got this stupid adapter on my, but it literally lights up everything you paint. You can see candies better. You can do your blend jobs better, everything. And it's a color-tuned, color-matching special COB light. Has over 400 reviews on Amazon. It's a top bestseller. Check it out. It's called Gun Bud. It's a universal lighting system that goes on any spray gun cup, gravity feed, or even siphon feed. Like, I've put this on an old siphon feed canister facing upward like this and painting like that. And it worked. Kind of crazy, but it worked. I've put this thing on cans like this when I do undercoating, okay, under cars. And it worked perfect. Okay, just like this. Spraying, you know, if you got to do wheel wells or whatever, like literally it works. So check it out. Cool little product. Camry hood and have tiger stripes. Send it down to metal. Should I start all over? Well, if you're getting tiger stripes or striping in your primer stage, don't worry about it, because that's going to be covered with paint anyway. So I wouldn't worry about it. To feather out quite a large area, about 5 by 5 inches, what is the clear coat that is completely peeled off? Where the clear coat has completely peeled off, or is it better to just sand without using filler? Well, it depends on what you're filling. If it could be sanded out without filler and feathered out, then do it without filler. Just use primer and block it out. But if you need to add a little bit of putty, then you're going to have to add some putty to that. I don't know. Hopefully, maybe I didn't understand your question. How tight do you make the nut on the needle by the trigger? Are you talking about the packing nut? Well, this one, the X88s don't have a packing nut. Are you talking about this? Or I'm not sure what. This is a packing nut here. Are you talking about this is the Atom X20? X20, I don't know if you see it. This is a packing nut here. This you don't want to over tighten, or else it will mess up your trigger spring here. Okay, it's supposed to be snug tight where this actually functions. Some people over tighten these and your trigger won't come back. So loosen it. Okay, sometimes people get a little leaking. It doesn't matter what gun you're using. But if you have a little paint leaking, sometimes you tighten this packing nut and it solves the issue. Just a very little. Okay. The other guns like the X27 do not have a packing nut, just an internal spring. So this, you don't have to worry about it. The X88 doesn't. So I'm not sure what nut by the trigger you're talking about. Is it this here? So this, I'm not sure. Spray smooth, super good, but when I try to spray with the 1.4, it sputters. I would make sure everything is tight, because you changed your tip, right? I would just double make sure of everything, because if it's spraying smooth and fine with the 1.3, you shouldn't have any issues at all with the 1.4. So maybe just take it apart, clean it, make sure this is tight. Okay, set your trigger and try it again. But anyway, have a great evening, guys. Talk to you soon. I'll be back next week, Monday as well, for your little auto body and paint Q&As. Peace.